Hey folks, in this video we're going to move into Chapter 8, which we're going to see a new type of hypothesis tests that apply to paired data. And I've hinted to this in previous videos, but let's do a quickie recap. So far, we have been comparing samples in order to make comparisons about their population means. And in Chapter 6.7 is where we first got introduced to that concept with a confidence interval for the difference in population means. And an important question that we ended up asking ourselves was if that confidence interval contains 0. Then we formally were introduced to hypothesis testing in Chapter 7. And in Chapter 7.2 was where the t-test, I'm going to call it the two-sample t-test here, was introduced. And we saw different aspects of it. And we saw directional tests in Chapter 7.5. And finally, the t-test has kind of strict requirements, that normality requirement. And we saw, well, what do you do when that requirement is not met? And in 7.10, we had the Wilcoxon-Mann-Whitney test as a backup. This content was shown in, the Wilcoxon-Mann-Whitney test. This is going to be Lab 9. Two-sample t-test was Lab 8. And the confidence interval for a difference in means was Labs 7 and 8. All of these methods to make comparisons have required the samples be independently collected. Now that's different than independent observations. So independent collection has been illustrated in examples such as, hey, 100 rainbow trout were selected and 85 brook trout were selected, and we compared their lengths. Or we have the scores for one group of people and we've got the scores for this other group of people. So those two samples are independently chosen, selected, collected. In Chapter 8, we're now going to look at the paired design. So that is when the samples are not independently chosen. And I've hinted to this in the past, but we're going to look at some scenarios to get you familiar with what this paired design might look like. There are lots of ways in which a study can have a paired design. One of the cool ones, I think, are twin studies, because you have your subjects coming in as a pair. One half of the twin pair didn't randomly get selected, and the other twin also got randomly selected, and it just so happened that everyone was half of a twin. No, they're coming in as a pair. There might be before and after scenarios. Maybe a measurement in the response variable has been collected before a treatment was administered, and then after the treatment was administered, that measurement took place again. We're looking at the change from before to after. So there, each subject is giving you a pair of data. Another way this can take place is if each subject in the study may be exposed to two different treatments, treatment A and treatment B, and now you've got a pair of data, right? The measurement of the response variable under treatment A and under treatment B. So there's all sorts of ways that you can get pairs coming up. Here are just 3 of the ways that we might see. So the idea with this pair design is then you've got 2 sets of data. I'm going to call them Y1 and y2. Maybe you want to call it y before and y after. I don't know, ya, yb. And the data occur in pairs. Now, the important aspect about a paired design is that y1 and y2 are not independent. If it was the same individual exposed to treatment A and then exposed to treatment B, how they respond to each of those treatments may affect one another, so they're not independent. So that's a violation of the t-test requirements, of the classic t-test requirements. So we cannot use a regular t-test, which is called the two-sample t-test. Since we cannot use a two-sample t-test, but we still want to know what occurred from the treatment A to treatment B, or from the before to the after, the way that that is accomplished is we look at the differences. So a subtraction occurs of the paired observations. And with these hypothesis tests, we're always looking if there's some sort of change or some difference. If it's directional, then we say, was there an increase or a decrease? With a paired test, we're still doing that, except now our observations are occurring in pairs, but we're going to just look at their difference. So there's a lot of similarity here. And we're going to test whether these t-tests are always about the mean. If the mean difference is significantly different, here we're actually going to use a value. We want to see if the mean of the differences is significantly different than, I want you to think about this. If you're taking a subtraction and those two quantities are not different, 12 minus 12, then what would that value be? 0. So to test for a significant difference, we're going to be testing if those differences are significantly off from 0. In the next video, we're going to look at some study scenarios to see what may a paired design look like, and then we will also look at some notation. See you there.